Another street light, the night ecosystem built by artificial glow. At night, a street can appear empty. The footsteps fade, the traffic slows, the windows close one by one, and the visible rhythm of human life begins to soften. That under a single street light, another world is only just beginning. What seems like a simple pour of yellow or white illumination on concrete is, in ecological terms, a newly created habitat, an artificial island of attraction, confusion, feeding, and survival. The moment darkness settles and lamp flickers on, the ecosystem of the night reorganizes itself around the world. To humans, the streetlight is utility. It extends visibility, increases safety, and marks the shape of roads and sidewalks after sunset. But to insects, it's something far stranger. Many night-flying species evolved under celestial navigation, using the moon and stars as distant reference points. The lights remain effectively fixed from the insect's perspective, allowing them to maintain stable angles in flight. A street lamp breaks the ancient logic. Unlike the moon, it is close, bright, and impossible to orient around without distortion. The result is circling, spiraling, seemingly aimless flight we know so well, most looping endlessly around but gnats clustering in the brightest air, beetles striking glass, or meter services over and over. This confusion creates concentration. In the darkness beyond the lamp, insects remain distributed across patches, drains, tree canopies, and garden edges. But once the light appears, many species are pulled inward. The illuminated zone becomes a dense cloud of movement. Tiny meters hover in vibrating columns. Most web fly circles at different heights. Flying ants drift in from nearby cracks in pavement. Mosquitoes move along the edge where shadow and light meet, exploiting the increased insect traffic without exposing themselves fully. The ecology of the streetlight begins with attraction, but it quickly becomes predation. The first hunters to respond are often spiders, corners of lamp posts, nearby walls, capers, and overhanging branches become ideal anchor points for webs. Some spiders rebuild the webs every evening, having learned that artificial light guarantees prey density. The lamp is not simply illumination, it is a feeding machine, converting confusion into predictable biomass. At ground level, beetles emerge from the cracks in the sidewalk. The concrete still holds warmth from the day, and that retained heat combines with the light to create an unusually active microclimate. Ants may continue late night foraging longer here than in darker zones. Tiny roaches dart along the curb edge, scavenging dead insects that fall from above. Even the dust beneath the lamp changes composition to the night, accumulating wings, scales, pollen, and fragmented bodies. The insects more invisible around the light are often moths, and moths are far more ecologically important than most people realize. While butterflies dominate daytime beauty, moths quietly perform much of the night shift in pollination. Many flowers open or release stronger scent compounds after sunset specifically to attract nocturnal pollinators. A street light can interrupt the ancient relationships, pulling moths away from flowers and toward jeweler circles around glass and matter. In that sense, the light creates a habitat while also disrupting other ones. That ecosystems are never passive. Other species rapidly adapt to their artificial abundance. Geckos appear on nearby worlds, flattening their bodies close to warm surfaces, waiting for insects to drift within range. Their hunting strategy is based on stillness, and streetlights provide a constant stream of distracted prey. Frogs near water streets, drains, or garden growers may act closer to the glow, positioning themselves where insects descend lower. Thus, if the neighborhood supports them, the entire hollow it as an aerial buffet, slicing through swamps in near silent arcs. The light itself creates layers directly beneath the bulb is the brightest zone, where small flying insects cluster most densely. Around that lies a dimmer perimeter where larger moths circle more freely. Beyond that, the boundary between light and darkness becomes one of the most important hunting edges in the ecosystem. Predators use the shadows as cover, striking into the lit space and retreating again. The act ecology mirrors the structure of natural forest clearance, except here it is built by metal poles and electrical grids. Plants near streetlights are drawn into the system as well. Leaves closest to the glow may experience altered growth cycles because the artificial brightness extends what plants interpret as daylight. Some flowers bloom differently under repeated night exposure. This in turn changes natural timing, insect visitation, and the feeding patterns of species that depend on the plants. A single lamp can subtly reshape plant insect relationship over months or years. Rain amplifies the drama. Unrecognized, the pavement reflects the glow, effectively doubling the visible light field. Flying insects descend lower because the air becomes denser and more humid. Snails and slugs emerge from cracks and garden edges, moving toward damp debris beneath the lamp. Reflections on borders make confuse aquatic insects into attempting at laying on asphalt instead of real water, turning temporary roadside pools into ecological traps. Even that becomes part of the ecosystem's design that moves beneath a lamp feed ants, beetles, and scavenging spiders by dawn. Birds arriving at first light may feed on the remains or on predators still lingering nearby. In that way, the night ecosystem extends into morning. Its leftovers becoming resources for the day shift. The deeper mystery of the streetlight ecosystem is that it is entirely human-made, that now fully occupied by natural processes, attraction, competition, predation, scavenging, navigation, failure, thermal retention, plant respawn, and food web restructuring all occur because one artificial sun rises in the dark. And this is only the beginning. In part 2, we will follow the predators of the claw, geckos, spiders, bats, frogs, and night birds, and they turn artificial light into one of the most efficient feeding zones in the urban ecosystem. The moment insects begin circling a straight line, the balance of the night changes. What starts as attraction quickly becomes opportunity. And in ecosystems, opportunity never remains unused for long. The glowing hollow bit above the pavement is more than a concentration of prey. It is a signal, a predictable nightly event that predators learn to exploit with extraordinary precision. Over time, the street light becomes one of the most efficient hunting grounds in the urban night. The first and most consistent predators are often spiders. Their advantages lies not in speed, but in strategy. Around the metal frame of a lamppost, the corner of a gourd, or the underside of a nearby site, spiders stretch webs exactly where insect fly paths become chaotic. A moth drawn into the practice zone rarely flies in a straight line. Instead, it loops, stores, rises, and dips unpredictably, increasing the chance of contact with seal lice placed just outside the practice center. The placement is not random. Spiders that survive in streetlight zones appear to understand the geometry of confusion. So weaving spiders rebuild their webs each evening, timing construction to coincide with the first activation of the light. The lamp effectively guarantees a base light pre-dusty, making web placement here far more efficient than in darkness alone. In many cities, entire spider populations are denser around regularly lit streets than in adjacent unlit alleys. A single pole can support multiple webs stacked vertically. Each species occupying a slightly different height and hue pattern. Where webs and geckos begin, warm concrete walls and lampposts create ideal surfaces for the nocturnal hunters. Geckos remain still for long periods, using patience rather than pursuit. Their large eyes are adapted for low light, and the street lamp amplifies the advantage further. A distracted moth or mosquito drifting too close is seized in a sudden burst of speed. The gecko retreating back into stillness almost immediately. The world itself becomes part of the ecosystem design. Cracks provide daytime shelter, warmth retained from the afternoon sun keeps the survey active later into the night. Insects attracted to the lamp often descend onto the wall before rising again, and the vertical post creates perfect perch points. A gecko stationed beneath a pub may fit more efficiently in 1 hour than it could in an entire dark garden. Near wetter environments, storm drains, roadside puddles, damp alley corners, frogs and toads joined the hunt. Unlike geckos, they use the crowd layer, turning the base of the lamp into a circular feeding territory. Small insects, disoriented by the light, eventually descend toward the pavement, either exhausted or drawn downward by reflected glow. Here, amphibians wait motionless, their camouflage blending with red concrete or leaves swept against the curb. Their strides are fast and energy efficient, conserving movement until prey enters the ideal range. The street light also creates a powerful feeding corridor for bats. Insects concentrated around artificial life form dance aerial prey zones, and bats quickly memorize the locations. Their echolocation, already highly specialized, works even better in areas where prey is predictably clustered. A bat passing through a dark neighborhood may alter its nightly route specifically to include a line of lamps known to attract moths and gnats. Unlike spiders or geckos, bats operate at speed. Their hunting transforms the entire hollow into moving layers of bricks. Small insects remain in the quietest zone. Larger moths circle wider. Bats slice through the outer lobes, intercepting prey mid-flight. The result is a dynamic predator-prey choreography built entirely around human infrastructure. In some places, neighbors also exploit the cloud, sweat, night dust, or even oils, and suburban edges may populate roads where insect activity peaks. For birds adapted to dusk and low light hunting, the lamb extends feeding time far beyond natural twilight. A species that once relied only on moonlit clearings can now hunt above sidewalks and parking lots, using artificial brightness as an ecological extension of dusk. The concentration of predators creates competition. Spiders claim fixed territories through web placement. Geckos often defend favored word positions beneath reliable bugs. Bats compete in the air through speed and route memory. Frogs dominate the crowd ring closest to them zones. The lamb is not only a food source, it is prime real estate. One of the most fascinating effects of repeated streetlight hunting is behavioral learning. Predators begin to associate the timing of illumination with food availability. A gecko may emerge minutes before the light turns on. Spiders may reveal gaps at almost the same hour each night. Bats may assert flight paths seasonally, as certain lamps attract more moths during warmer months. They are not random behaviors, they are ecological schedules built around human electricity. The insects themselves respond as well. Some species avoid bright paths entirely, shifting to darker edges where predation is lower. Others remain trapped by ancient navigation instincts, unable to adapt quickly enough. That creates selective pressure over generations, subtly changing which insect species dominate urban environments. The edge between light and darkness becomes the most strategic hunting zone of all. In the center, prey is abundant but exposed in total darkness. Prey density drops at the edge. Predators can remain hidden while prey repeatedly crosses into vulnerability. Spiders extend ample lies through the transition zone. Geckos cling just beyond the predator's reflection, best curve through shadow before cutting across the hollow. Even frogs use the edge of curved shadows where insects land before reorienting. Rain transforms the hunt again. Wet asphalt reflects the bow, extending the lit zone downward into a second luminous layer. Flying insects become confused by the mirror effect. Dropping closer to the ground, frogs benefit first, but so do scavenging beetles that collect the dew dead. By midnight, the street light becomes not only an aerial feeding zone but a vertical column of food from sky to pavement. What appears to Earth as a simple moat circling a lamp is, in reality, the opening move in a much larger system. Insects gather, predators converse, scavengers collect remains, morningbirds harvest leftovers, nutrients return to soil through drains and cracks. The lampreys an energy tuner, concentrating the night's biological activity into one predictable location. The artificial feeding hotspot also influences surrounding habitats. Predators that feed successfully under lights may reduce pressure in nearby gardens, groups, or early vegetation. Conversely, insect populations never flowers may decline because pollinators are repeatedly thrown away. Over time, the cloud changes not just the sidewalk beneath it, but the ecological balance of the whole street. The remarkable thing is how fast nature adapts. Within only a few nights of reliable illumination, hunting routines begin to form. Over most predator territories stabilize. Over the years, entire urban wildlife behaviors can reorganize around artificial light infrastructure. The predators of the cloud reveal something essential about ecosystems. Life does not waste concentration. Whenever energy gathers, whether around a flowering tree, a bundle after rain, or human-made lamp, food webs rise instantly to occupy it. In part 3, we will move beyond the visible hunters and explore the hidden costs of artificial light, disrupted pollination, altered plant rhythms, insect exhaustion, and how the street light changes the biology of the night itself. From a distance, the ecosystem around a street light can seem strangely productive. Insects gather in huge numbers, predators feed efficiently, and the cloud turns an empty road into a visible character of life. But every ecosystem built on concentration carries their hidden cost. Beneath the surface spectator of most spiders, bats, and geckos lies their harder story. one of disrupted rhythms, wasted energy, altered plant biology, and night species slowly adapting to a darkness that no longer behaves like night. The first cause is navigation failure. Many nocturnal insects evolved over millions of years using celestial light sources as orientation tools. The moon remains effectively fixed, allowing insects to maintain stable angles in flight. A straight line breaks their ancient geometry. Because it is close and intensely bright, the insect's orientation logic collapses. What looks like random circling is actually the result of a navigation system trying to maintain an impossible angle around a nearby source. This alert circling drains energy fast. A moth that should have flown across several gardens to locate flowers or a mate may instead spend its entire night orbiting a single lamp. By dawn, many are exhausted, easier prey for birds, ants, or beetles. Some die directly beneath the bowl, their wings scattered across the pavement like dry petals. The ecosystem gains scavenger food, but the individual insect has lost its reproductive opportunity entirely. For pollination networks, there is a serious disruption. Many plants depend on moths, petals, and night active flies to transfer pollen between flowers that bloom after sunset. White or pale flowers often release stronger scent compounds in the evening specifically to attract the nocturnal visitors. Artificial light interrupts their relationship by diverting pollinators away from their floral roots and into star-like circles around matter and glass. A flowering vine growing near fence in darkness may receive dozens of moth visits in one night. Place a prey lamp 10 meters away, and those visits can collapse dramatically over weeks and seasons. That changes seed production, fruiting success, and even weight. Plant species dominate an urban street. The street light does not just attract insects, it rewrites reproductive pathways for plants. Plants themselves pay a second cost. Photoperiod disruption. Many species rely on the natural length of darkness to regulate growth cycles. Flowering, leaf drop, and dormancy. Artificial night lighting extends what plants perceive as day confusing seasonal signals. Leaves nearest a lamp may remain green longer into autumn, delaying nutrient withdrawal. Flowers may bloom at altered times, but formation can become mistimed. That shift affects herbivores too. Caterpillars, aphids, and shaft-feeding insects often synchronize life stages with specific plant cycles. When a plant's timing changes, the insects that depend on it may hatch too early, too late, or under altered predator pressure. The result is not always visible immediately, but over months the street side vegetation begins behaving differently than plants just a little farther into darkness. Artificial glow also changes the acoustic ecology of the night. Many crickets, katydids, and frogs rely on darkness cues to begin calling. Extended brightness can delay the signal's shifting mating windows later into the night. Predators that hunt by sound, owls, bats, and some mammals adjust accordingly. The streetlight indirectly changes not only what species gather, but when entire soundscapes begin. The brightest hidden cost may be insect exhaustion through repeated field attraction. Unlike flowers, moonlight, or reflective water, the lamp offers no biological reward to many species. It's a sink-weighted movement. Mosquitoes may survive because they exploit the traffic, but moths, mayflies, and aquatic insects often lose valuable time circling without feeding or reproducing. Some aquatic insects make even more costly mistakes. Species that normally use polarized moonlight reflections to locate ponds may confuse wet as for parked cars or glossy rooftops for water surfaces. Females may attempt at laying on the artificial reflections, wasting entire reproductive cycles. What appears to Earth as insects clustering around a wet road after rain may actually be a full ecological trap. Predators benefit in the short term, but even they are tied to the disruptions. If streetlights dramatically reduce moth reproduction over time, the abundance that geckos, spiders, and bats currently enjoy can decline. Urban ecosystems built around light often become boom and fragility systems, highly productive but dependent on species that are simultaneously being weakened. Human choices about pop tie deepen the effect. Warm amber lights attract fewer insects than bright blue white lights, which emit wavelengths many nocturnal species are strongly drawn to. As cities upgrade lighting infrastructure, the ecological consequences can shift dramatically. A single neighborhood changing pop color may alter insect density, bat feeding routes, and spider populations within weeks. The edge habitats beyond the light suffer too. Insects that avoid prey may cluster unnaturally in darker patches, increasing competition and predator pressure there. Flowers in shadow may receive the few remaining pollinators, while those closer to the lamp are effectively abandoned. The street becomes a patchwork of overexposed zones and ecological shadows. Weather multiplies the hidden cost. Fog diffuses the light into a wider hollow, pulling insects from farther away. Rain reflections double the apparent light field, confusing even more species. Hot nights increase insect flight, making exhaustion events more severe. Seasonal humidity can intensify attraction for certain beetles and moths, concentrating reproductive failures during the most critical months. That ecosystems never stop adapting. Some urban moth populations are beginning to show altered attraction behaviors, favoring darker flight routes along tree canopies or garden hatches. Certain spider species now specialize almost exclusively in lamb-side hunting. Geckos in cities often grow larger and denser near reliable lights than in darker suburban zones. Evolution, even in human built systems,
continues quietly. Still, the coast remains clear. The streetlight creates abundance by redistributing biological effort in ways many species did not evolve for. It converts the night from a landscape of disparate ecological interactions into a concentrated hotspot of confusion and opportunity. What we call light pollution is not merely planar, it is ecological time pollution. It changes when plants sleep, when insects may, when predators hunt, and how the night itself is structured. This is why the cloud feels so cinematic. It's not simply beautiful construct against darkness. It's the visible act of a deeper biological negotiation between ancient instincts and modern electricity. In part 4, we will widen the lens beyond a single lamp and explore how entire streets, neighborhoods, and cities become connected night ecosystems through artificial light corridors and what that means for urban biodiversity. A single streetlight is never truly alone. What appears to us as one isolated glow on a quiet road is, in ecological reality, part of a much larger constellation. Every lamp along a sidewalk, every port pub, every store sign, every traffic signal, and every apartment window as another point of brightness to the open night. Together, the lights from corridors, islands, barriers, and feeding routes that reshape how life moves through the city after dark. To humans, city lights create infrastructure, they defy roads, extend working hours, improve visibility, and give neighborhoods a sense of safety. But for nocturnal wildlife, the scattered points of light function like a second geography layered over the physical city. There is the city of buildings, streets, drains, trees, and rooftops. And then there is the city of glow, illuminated map that many species now navigate every night. The most immediate effect of multiple lights is connectivity. Insects drawn away from natural darkness do not simply circle one pub and stop. Many species move from one light pool to the next, following the farthest available corridor. A moth may leave a garden, become trapped around a boat light, escape toward a straight line, then continue toward a brighter intersection site. Over a single night, its movement part may be shaped more by artificial light intensity than by food, mess, or shelter. That creates what ecologists often describe as light corridors along residential streets. Rows of evenly spaced lamps act almost like glowing stepping stones, allowing insects to travel through urban space and repeat short bursts of attraction. For predators, these same corridors become hunting routes, best memorized streets where insect density remains consistently high. Geckos occupy wards closest to the brightest clusters. Spiders colonize cables between lamps, extending the feeding zone from isolating posts into entire illuminated lights. The city at night becomes vertically layered. At ground level, ants, beetles, and roaches collect. Insect remains beneath a pool of light. At war high, geckos patrol warm surfaces. Mid-dirt belongs to most mosquitoes and bats. Horseshoe, nippers, and squibs may intercept larger insects drifting between lamps. Above them on rooftops and taller windows create secondary light fields that pull species upward into unusual flight paths. One of the most fascinating consequences of the artificial constellation is the creation of urban migration channels. Seasonal insects, especially moths and flying beetles, may shift routes according to city planning. Instead of moving along tree lines and waterways, they follow roads, culverts, or lit bridges that provide continued orientation points. The city unintentionally becomes a glowing river of movement. But corridors do not only connect, they can also fragment. Some nocturnal animals avoid prey zones entirely. Small mammals, amphibians, and certain insect species use darkness as cover from predators. A brightly lit road can become a barrier they are unwilling to cross, isolating populations in darker pockets such as parks, backyards, drainage systems, or abandoned lots. For the species, the city's artificial stars create invisible worlds. They do role corridor for some, barrier for others is what makes urban light ecology so complex. The same pollutant that feeds bats every night may prevent frogs from reaching a breeding pond across the street. The same apartment block light that supports spiders may disrupt moth pollination in nearby gardens. Plants also become connected through the constellation. Street trees under repeated night lighting may hold leaves longer, flower driftily, or delay dormancy compared with trees in darker blocks. When multiple lit trees lie a road, the entire avenue can shift seasonal timing, affecting the insects and birds that depend on synchronized flowering or fruiting. The city's lights do not just illuminate plants, they alter the biological calendar of whole neighborhoods. Rain transforms the constellation into something even more dramatic. Wet roads, puddles, and glass surfaces reflect every lamp, effectively multiplying the number of visible light points. For insects, the city suddenly becomes a maze of duplicated signals. For predators, prey density may spike along reflective streets. Bats assert flight paths. Frogs move closer to curbside puddles. Beetles cluster in drainage channels, carrying gas insects from multiple plots. Human behavior intensifies the patterns. Shops that stay open late create brighter nodes in the network. Residential areas squinting off board lights produce darker corridors. Holiday decorations, LED billboards, and vehicle headlights add temporary bursts of brightness that can redirect insect flow for hours or even weeks. In that way, the city's ecosystem responds not just to architecture but to social habits. The long-term ecological significance of the artificial constellation is enormous. Entire urban food webs begin to depend on it. Spiders stabilize around lamb-rigged streets, gecko populations increase on pride building walls, bats optimize gnarly routes by street layout, Scavenger beetles feed on concentrated insect food. Drone birds exploit lamb leftovers at sunrise. The city, without intending to, has built an alternative night biome, and that biome remains fragile. Changes in lighting technology can easily restructure it, switching from warm sodium lamps to cold white lights may increase insect attraction dramatically. Motion sensor lighting creates intermittent pulses rather than steady concentrations. Dark sky policies that reduce brightness can restore more natural night behavior in some species, while disrupting predators that have grown dependent on artificial abundance. That reveals a deeper truth. The city's night ecosystem is no longer separate from human design decisions. Urban biodiversity now responds directly to what it color, temperature, lamp spacing, and reflective surfaces as much as it does to weather or season. What makes this so powerful as a documentary story is the scale shift. We began with one street light and the insects circling beneath it. Now we see that every light in the city is part of a network, and every species moving through that network is adapting to a world humans unintentionally created.